Welcome back to the APSCC webinar series. I'm Christopher Slaughter. I'm your moderator for this series. If you've just registered, welcome. This is the 42nd of our APSCC webinar series. We started them last year out of necessity as much as anything else. We were not able to hold our annual conference in 2020, and so instead we decided to begin this webinar series, which we've continued throughout the pandemic, and we're continuing it now. So this is sort of the second half of the 2021 webinar series, and part of the reason that we're kind of making this announcement now as much as anything else is because we're also not going to be doing our annual conference in 2021. So the webinar series will continue on a regular basis on our Tuesday mornings as we've established a time slot for it. So please do continue to join us. And as I say, if this is the first time that you've joined us, there's about 41 or 42 other webinars that you can watch, all at the same website, apsccsat.com. And you're able to look at any of those that you choose to. So please do feel free to log in. You're joining about 12,000 other viewers that we've had so far for the whole series. And about probably about 3,500 people have registered for the series overall, and each of them have watched more than 4 of those. So it's a pretty good community of viewers that we have for the series, and we're delighted to be putting them out there. They are free of charge. APSCC is, of course, a not-for-profit industry association. If you're interested in helping contribute to APSCC, you can join the association and do that by logging in at apscc.or.kr. You can find out more about our latest initiatives, about the membership of the organization, and all of the other activities and the industry as a whole. So please do have a look there. Today, we're very, very happy to talk about launch services. So if you like rockets, you're in the right place. Joining us today to discuss the latest trends in launch services, Ding Jie from China Great Wall Industry Corporation, CGWIC, Igarashi Iwao-san from Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, Stephanie Bendarek from SpaceX, and Vivian Canet from Arianespace. I'm very happy to also point out that Vivian is a board member of APSCC, so delighted to have his participation in the webinar series too. The moderator, Mr. Peter de Selding from Space Intelligence Report. Take it away, Peter.
And good day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us here. We're talking about launch services today, and unlike you might have read with recent stock market introductions and other activity on the small launch side, here we're talking about companies that are established in the business, have an operating business, have had an operating business for some years, mainly with heavy lift launchers, but also some not so heavy lift launchers. We have 2 from Asia with CGWIC of China and MHI of Japan, 1 from Europe in Arianespace, and US-based SpaceX. They have very different ways of going at the business, and we're going to talk about some of that today. Again, most of the headlines in the launch space recently have been about new things, and all these companies have new vehicles coming online. CGWIC operates, I don't know how many, 8 or 9 different vehicles. China has 8 or 9 different long march variations. And Arianespace has 3 vehicles, at some point going down to 2, but Vivian will tell us about that. SpaceX, 1 vehicle, and another huge thing coming, and we'll talk about the transition between the current Falcon 9 and the Starship. And MHI should be coming out with the H3 vehicle, which is supposed to be a kind of a revolution for them in terms of ease of manufacture, cost of components, and ultimate price. And so we want to get into some of that today. We only have 60 minutes, less now. So I will get out of the way and ask each of the panelists to talk for, I don't know, 6 or 8 minutes to give people an idea of where their companies are and how they see the market. I might have a question or 2 for each of them after their presentations. And then we hope to have 15 or 20 minutes at the end of the session. We only have an hour for general questions. So let me start with China Great Wall Industry Corp, CGWIC, and Xiding. If you could give us a few words about where CGWIC is now in terms of how it looks at the market and what it expects in the next couple of years. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Peter, and I would like to appreciate APSCC inviting me to be here. In year of 2020, we did have some important milestones in aerospace development. Chinese launchers have conducted 39 missions, among which 34 flights were performed by launch several launch vehicles. Among those missions, we launched Chang'e 5 probe, which have brought back the lunar sample successfully, and launched Tianwen-1 Mars probe, marking the start of our planetary exploration program. Now, the Zhurong rover has landed in the state for more than 100 days on Mars smoothly, and we also completed the Beidou navigation satellite system and by sending the 55th satellite system into orbit and started providing global services. And last year, launch 5B and launch 8 launch vehicles successfully made their debut flights from Wenchang Space Launch Center. As for the first half of this year, we made great progress on manned space programs, including sending Tianhe core module into orbit to start the construction of nation space station, and launching Tianzhou 2 cargo ship in May, as well as the Shenzhou 12 spacecraft in June, in order to send 3 Chinese astronauts in the space station, who plan to stay for 3 months on board. Last week, the launch 3B successfully delivered a satellite into orbit, which made the total number of launches in the launch series reach 386. There are 4 months left for this year, and if we are lucky and everything goes well, this number is expected to be 400 soon. And it is interesting that it took us more than 30 years to finish the first 100 launches, while now we accomplished the fourth 100 missions just within 3 years. Back to the new launch vehicle, and we have developed so-called new generation launch vehicles using non-toxic propellants, covering a range of missions from planetary, lunar exploration, LEO missions, and to the construction of the space station, including Launch 5, China's most capable launch vehicle so far. Launch 7, the workhorse for our future GTO missions. Launch 8, the optimum solution of MEO and LEO missions, as well as 2 small launch vehicles for Launch 6 and Launch 11. China CGWIC has taken advantage of capabilities of a new generation to provide our customers cost-effective solutions. Last year, we've launched 10 new sats and plants, parts of this constellation for our foreign customers at Logic and other domestic payloads using a Launch 6 rocket. And this year, we've successfully completed our first commercial dedicated rideshare missions, which is also called Cutter Launch by Launch 6, placing a total of 9 payloads into orbit. Based on that, we are planning more commercial dedicated rideshare missions and larger launches in the near future to offer our our international and domestic customers more opportunities to space. That's all, Peter.
Okay, just a couple of things about that. So you've addressed one of the questions about ride shares, which I was going to ask you. So there's a debate in the industry about whether what SpaceX is doing is going to be the more successful, or what some of these smaller vehicles are doing. More precise orbit. You don't have to get a tug to take you where you want to go. You can launch maybe when you want one, rather than when your partners on a rideshare can launch. So CGWIC is doing, it looks like both. You've got a small vehicle and the larger vehicle for rideshare, right?
Yeah, so at first we do it on Launch 6. Then after we have a good results, and then we plan to have same model on larger launch vehicles, such as Launch 2D or Launch 8 launch vehicles. That's our plan.
Okay. All right. Could you tell us something, and you'll my ignorance, and maybe on the part of some of the audience as well, China Great Wall Industry Corp works with the China Academy of Launch Technology.
Yeah.
How is the back and forth? Do you say, we know the market better than you do, you need to be developing this vehicle for the market? You might not know about this market, but believe me, it's big. Or do they hand you basically a portfolio of vehicles that they think the Chinese government's going to want, and then you work with those? How does that work?
Yes, and we focus on the commercial launch services and with the support and the guidance of our parent company, which is an CASC, and we work with our partners, which are the COUTS and also SST, and we provide launch services with the support of SST and COUTS to provide us launch services of long-march services. Long-march services including the launch vehicles from COUTS and also as well as the launch vehicles from SST, which is Shanghai space flight technology. How to say that? SST. Like cooperation, like that. Okay.
Yeah. So we
focus on the markets and they produce the launch vehicles.
Right. So is CGU would you call it a company?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not. It's not. A lot of people in the West think that everything in China is government. And of course, and I know that's not quite true. And even in launch vehicles now in China, there are privately funded launch vehicles being developed. We'll see whether they succeed or not. So there's a private sector, a venture capital almost launch sector in China that's been really active for the last 6 years, I think. So are you responsible, for example, making a profit every year, or does the government customer say, don't worry about that, just try to sell vehicles?
Yes, we are. That we are a state-owned company, but we are the commercial organization authorized by the Chinese government to provide the commercial launch services and satellite systems and to carry out the space and technology cooperation with the international customers with the support and the guidance of our parent company, and with support our the COUTS and also as well as the SST.
Okay, one more for you, and I'll free you for a few minutes. There are so many different long march variants.
Yeah.
If I were selling, I don't know, potatoes, I don't know if I'd want to sell 9 or 10 different varieties of potatoes. Maybe I would. I don't know. Do you want to? I mean, from a business point of view,
yeah,
is it your goal to sort of consolidate the portfolio into a smaller number of vehicles, or are you okay with maintaining so many different variants? Again, there are 9 or 10 of them, it seems to me.
I think it depends on the choices of the customer. If this launch vehicle can meet their meet their demands, and they will choose it. I mean, in terms of the economy or some of the price. So we let the customer choose the launch vehicle. Because okay. That we have a large variety of launch vehicles, long-march launch vehicles.
Yes, you certainly do. And of course, that means a certain cost associated. The more variety you have, the more costs are associated with each given variant, because you can't launch, if you've got 10 variants, you can't launch them all as many as you might launch if there are only 2 or 3 variants, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll come back to that. Thank you. Let me move on to MHI, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. And Iwahu, if you could give us 8-10 minutes of your assessment of where your company is, something about where the H3 is, because that's the new baby coming in soon. But please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Peter. And nice to meet you, everyone. I'm pleased to join this here and to have the opportunity to show our update a little. Unfortunately, we don't have many missions in last year and this year. But I can introduce you something. Last year in 2020, we had some missions by H2A launch vehicle and H2B, and the H2B was retired after this last year's mission. And one of the memorial missions was the last flight of this H2B with HTV, we call it Konotari, to the International Space Stations. With this last mission, all 9 missions were 100% successful. Okay, and future supply mission to the ISS, International Space Station, from Japan will be provided by the improved version of HTV, at this moment named HTVX. And MHI is currently participating in this JAXA's development, and it will be launched by H3. We are now developing. Okay, and so this year into 2021, even in influence of the corona pandemic, we will have 2 missions, not so many, but two missions, not less than 2 missions, precisely. And although corona situation in Japan with Delta is currently serious, but we will overcome one by one every challenges and promise to achieve the success as well. And I have to say about our last topic of H3 developing currently. Almost all subsystem has been qualified, and one of the good events last March was the wet run rehearsal in a launch site, the Tanegashima Island. We have successfully done that. We installed the liquid oxygen and the liquid hydrogen, and make a test, a lot of various kind of tests to confirm the countdown just before the main engine ignition. And so, of course, we had a lot of matters, but it was this was we expected. We would fix it, all of them, and we are now preparing for the first launch. And so at now, the first vehicle of H3 stands in our vehicle assembling building in Tanegashima. Very large one, a very large building, and next to that H3 launch vehicle, the first, we built the next H2A launch vehicle. So at now, H2A and H3 stands side by side. It is the first time for us to see at the same time 2 different vehicles in such a big VAB, vertical vehicle assembling buildings. It's so big, and I don't know you are familiar with that. We have big slide doors in front of that building, and you can choose which one, right room or left room, and you can choose the launch vehicle to set to the launch pad. So we are preparing for the next launching currently. That's it.
Okay. So I'm going to really shock you here. So hold on to your chair. When is the H3 launch?
So we are working hard for the preparation for the H3. The first, at this moment, I can say we will launch this first launch of H3 in this year, in this fiscal year 2021.
Okay, and your fiscal year ends in March?
Yes, ends in March.
So between now and March, is it likely to be in calendar year 2021 or more like the end of your fiscal year?
So end of the fiscal year.
End of fiscal year, okay. And so your next launch will be an H2A?
H2A, we are going to launch the government missions. It is one of the QZS, we call it QZS, Quasi Zenith satellite system. Yeah, it's a kind of replacing of the older one. Yeah.
Understood. Okay. And one before I let you go, and we come back later for general questions, but MHI particularly had a lot of ambition for H3 while it was in design in terms of cost and thus price reductions compared to the H2.
Yeah.
So, how would you nobody reaches 100% of what they design, I suppose, but what can you say about how happy you are, MHI, with the result in terms of the likely unit cost production of H3 compared to H2A?
Your question is, what is the happiest story of this H3? So by this price down, if I got more and more contracts with customers, it would be happy for us. And the special one is our engine. The reliability would be higher than current ones. So very, very stable and powerful. And we will install 2 or 3 engines to this vehicle.
Okay. Are you under again? I should know this, but I don't. Are you under pressure from the Japanese government to drop prices so that you can make more launches for export markets and then reduced prices to governments, because the more vehicles you launch, the lower the unit cost is? Or, I mean, how does that work? Obviously, if the market is not doing very well, for example, will the government reimburse some difference to you, or are you on your own? The market does well, the market doesn't do well. That's your problem. How does that work?
Okay, so basically, this national launch vehicle is funded by the government, and the government expects us to be very compatible to the worldwide standard. Which means the prices, and it would be good for the tax saving.
Sure.
Okay, and again, as you mentioned, they expect us, which is a kind of pressure, to make a business with commercial aspects. So we are now continuing to discuss a lot of commercial customers to solve the customer demands with using this H3 launch vehicle in near future.
Okay, fair enough. All right, we'll come back to you. Stephanie Bernard from SpaceX, let me move over to you. SpaceX is a fairly publicly known company, and a lot of the stuff that I would ask you is already out in the public, so we're going to stick to some stuff that might not be. But let me let you start with just giving you a chance to assess where SpaceX is now as a launcher company, not a broadband constellation operator, but as a launch service provider.
Sure, Peter, thanks for having me. And just by way of quick introduction, I'm a senior director for commercial sales, and me and my team are responsible for our global non-U.S. government dedicated launches and larger ride shares. So I'm really on the launch side of the business, not the Starlink side of the business, but excited to be here and give a little bit of an update. First thing, I do want to set the stage. While this is often said very, about SpaceX, we really were founded under the belief that a future where humanity is out exploring the stars is more exciting than one where we're not. And there's so much focus on tactical, moving through a launch cadence and other aspects of our business, but really fundamentally we are a company that is about exploring the stars and expanding humanity beyond the bounds of Earth. We had a really great 2020, and I believe we launched 26 times last year and averaged a cadence of about once every 2 weeks. 2 of those were crew launches, an exciting growing part of our business, and something we're keenly focused on, being able to safely deliver astronauts to and from low Earth orbit, and have some missions coming up more soon. Falcon 9 has crossed the threshold of over 100 launches, successful launches of Falcon 9. So that's truly our workhorse vehicle these days. And this year already we've had 21 launches, and I think we have another one coming up in just a couple days. So it's been a very busy year, and building on the success of Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy, we are gung-ho and fully working on our Starship vehicle, which is really our next generation of a fully and rapidly reusable system, Starship. And I think that's important to understand, that it's not just partially reusable, it's fully reusable, and the intent is to have it rapidly reusable as well. That'll be the most powerful rocket ever built, and we'll be able to carry people to Mars and other destinations within the solar system, but certainly many, many commercial applications for that vehicle as well. So I think I'll leave it there. Okay.
On Starship, it's a huge beast, and this is not a modification on the F9 by any stretch. As someone managing a launch service business and talking to customers, what do you tell them about Starship availability? I mean, for some missions, they might not care. For some other missions, they obviously do. I'm trying to figure out what customers might want a Starship instead of a Falcon 9.
Sure. So, I'm excited to see what satellite manufacturers are going to be able to do to take advantage of the performance and the size of fairing that Starship offers. But in the near term, I'm fully aware that customers need to design to have some launch vehicle agnostic approaches, so that they have assurances that they'll be able to get a safe ride to space. But I think customers are really excited to see what kind of capability Starship can offer, not just in terms of performance and volume, but also in terms of schedule and rapid assurance. And as we all know, the demand for launch is changing. It's not just a static, large geostationary satellites, though that's great. That's market for sure, but also it's changing, right, of smaller satellites to different orbits, and we believe Starship offers that sort of flexibility. So a lot of our customers are interested in learning more about Starship, seeing the progress that we're making, and excited to be talking about that more and more these days.
Well, should we? I guess the question was, I badly phrased it. Sorry. Should we be talking about a transition from Falcon 9 to Starship, or do you imagine that for out to the foreseeable future, they'll be operating side by side?
Oh, they'll be operating side by side for sure. And I believe that we'll be keeping our Falcon fleet going as long as our customers want us to. I think until we have Starship flying in such a way that even our most conservative customers are excited to be flying on Starship, we'll be having the Falcon fleet along. So that is one of the advantage that we have different launch sites and different production capabilities that we can fly these vehicles side by side.
Understood. A couple more for you before I pass over to Vivian Arianespace. Your president, Gwynne Shotwell, had mentioned a couple weeks ago, we've all read, or at least some of us had read, that several Florida government jurisdictions have asked people to stop watering their lawns, do other things so that the pressure on the freshwater supply in Florida and the ability of Florida hospitals to provide liquid oxygen would not be compromised. And Gwynne Shotwell was saying that's also affected us, obviously. We're not going to take precedence over hospitals. Can you say something about that? I mean, I guess, and here I just don't know much about how well liquid oxygen travels, but can you get liquid oxygen from places outside Florida where there might not be as much stress and bring it to your launch site, or is that just not considered feasible?
That's a really good question. And Peter, I'm sorry, I don't really have much more information on that. I'm not a ground systems expert, though something I will certainly go look at and learn about. But so far, I believe our active launch cadence, I don't anticipate any launch delays for Falcon customers because of that. If that changes, we'll certainly let you know.
Fair enough. Okay. And then about Starlink, again, from a launch supplier point of view.
Sure.
Starlink is supposed to be it will be a constellation of 4,400 satellites. Its first iteration. You've got about, 40% of it up now, something like that. And if I look at it in the current way it's launched, 60 Starlinks per Falcon 9, right? And you guys have demonstrated that you can crank these launches out at pretty good speed with 26 Falcon 9s in 2021. But that would mean if each Starlink lasts an average of 5 years in orbit, you would have to be launching 880 new Starlinks every year just to maintain the constellation. That's a lot. Now, Falcon 9 is big, but that's still 14 Falcon 9s a year just to maintain the Starlink fleet. This is difficult for people to get their heads around. Just for your internal use, you'll need the equivalent, and obviously for Starship, it'll be a lot fewer than that. 14 Falcon 9s a year, as long as the eye can see, or until Starship takes over. How do you manage the Starlink business inside of the SpaceX launch services? Is this something that's done with internal accounting only? Is it fair to say that Starlinks get a free ride from you guys, and then at some point when Starlink becomes a business, you'll start billing them? How does that work?
Sure. So I won't get into the accounting side of things, but I think from a customer standpoint, it actually offers a lot of advantage to our, shall I say, outside paying customers, not internal customers, in that we have such a high production rate and a high launch rate for Falcon 9, and I have flexibility of when Starlink missions are going to go, that we're able to slot in our global customers to a launch slot that ideally fits their satellite development and schedule. So it's really an advantage, not my manifest is blocked up by Starlink launches, I can't fit you in. So we're able to be really flexible to be able to launch our customers when they need to launch, because we have that high cadence and that high vehicle availability. Yeah,
and I guess because launch demand outside Starlink hasn't been huge so far this year, that's lucky enough, because I believe that SpaceX stood down Falcon 9s for several weeks while you waited for a modification to the Starlink satellites to add an optical intersatellite links to each of them was ready, so that the next batch going up will have those intersatellite links, right?
Sure. And from customer readiness, as much as it would be great to have customers ready exactly once a month or once every 2 weeks when the vehicle is ready. Customer readiness ebbs and flows, of course, right? So we'll have a bunch of commercial satellites rolling off the line at the same time and government customers that want to launch at the same time. But again, because we have that high cadence, we're able to adapt. So maybe there's a few Starlink missions in a row, then a few commercial customers in a row, or we slot them in between. But that's where we have that flexibility. So we're really able to launch when customers are ready and want to get up to orbit.
Is the addition of these optical heads on the Starlinks, it's going to have a modification to the volume and the mass of each satellite? Well, is the idea still to have 60 of them going up with Falcon 9s?
Stay tuned. I mean, we'll still max out the capabilities of Falcon 9 and really launch as many Starlinks as we can. And of course, eventually Starlink will launch on Starship as well. So, and I think probably, I anticipate sooner than everyone thinks. So we'll be able to see that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. But you don't know whether the addition of these optical heads will reduce the number of satellites per Falcon 9?
I'll check, but I believe that it's still the plan is to max it out.
At 60. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. We'll come back, Stephanie. Arianespace. A lot of stuff is going on with you guys as well. And Vivian, you've talked on this forum before. I guess today's topic is how you currently see the transition between Ariane 5 and Ariane 6. You've got a smaller vehicle called Vega, which is now going to be, I guess, phased out over the next few years in favor of a Vega C, which is more powerful. At some point, this is a question for you, the Soyuz rocket from French Guiana anyway, which doesn't launch a lot but does launch, will be phased out so that you can use the future Ariane 6 lighter variant and Vega C for mainly European government launches that now launch by Soyuz. So spend a few minutes, tell us where you are in that transition. It's obviously, the Arianespace of 2025 is going to not look at all the same as Arianespace in 2021.
No, that's correct. And this is happening next year. So maybe I start with this year, because there's been a lot of things that has happened this year in 2021. It's been the year of all the records. It's been the record of launch, although the year is not finished. We are planning to have the highest number of launch this year out of the 41 years we've been in business. We've been planning 16 launches this year. It really depends on whether or not we get the satellite from the customer, but that's the plan. The second record was just last month. We managed to fly 3 different rockets from 2 different spaceports for 3 different type of customers. So just stationary with Quantum and Star 1D2 on the GEO side, constellation for OneWeb with Soyuz, and the Vega for Airbus Pleiad Neo. So that was also a first for us to launch 3 times in 1 month, and that gives pretty much the direction where we want to go with Vega C and Ariane 6. The last record, which is not done yet, and it's not really a performance from Arianespace, but it's more pride. It's the launch that we're going to do this November or towards the end of the year. We're going to launch the most expensive payload ever launched in space, which is the James Webb Telescope, and we're very proud of that. So, in short, 2021 is a record year for us, and we are very happy with that year. Now, 2022, as you highlighted, is a transition year. So we're going to operate 5 launches in 2022. So that's a challenge. But we are doing that in order to ensure that we have a smooth transition between the Ariane 5 and the Ariane 6, and between the Vega and the Vega C. So in terms of timing, we are planning to have the first Ariane 6 maiden flight in early Q2 2022. I think the plan for now is to start a campaign in Q1 and to launch in April. We take ourselves a buffer of 3 months, but it should be around there. And we're gonna continue to operate the Ariane 5 at the same time on a different launch pad until the end of the year. So we will run in parallel both Ariane and Ariane 6, starting with the Ariane 62, which is the lighter version. and the Ariane 5 at the same time. For Vega and Vega C, we're planning the maiden flight in Q1 2022 for the Vega C, but we are actually operating the Vega, the normal Vega, until 2023. And that's the same reason we don't want to affect our customers. So we'll have both launchers working and operated in parallel. So yeah, that's it in terms of transition. I'm not sure if you want to tell more about the launch itself, Ariane 6 and Vega C.
Yeah, certainly on Ariane 6, but you were cutting out on my end. My internet connection might be the problem. But so Ariane 5 phases out at the end of 22, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, and Vega, the current Vega, that phases out at the end of 2023.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, all right. And current thinking on Ariane 6 is sometime Q2 2022.
The maiden flight is planned in April 2022, as for now, yeah. Okay,
all right. I can't help but ask about James Webb, because it is, I guess you could call it a unique payload. The people should know we're talking here on September 1. This won't be aired until September 7. So as of September 1, as far as you know, is James Webb on a boat already heading to South America, or not quite yet?
Well, when it's on the boat, that I am not sure. I know the campaign would start around October, and I think the last time I heard was towards end of October, early November. When it's going to be on the boat, I'm not sure. I know that it's going to be a long campaign because it's a very specific mission, and we put all care that are requested for this kind of campaign. So it's a long mission, but exactly when it will leave the US for French Guyana, this I'm not so sure.
That's okay. All right. On Ariane 5, now Ariane 5 was down for about 11 and a half months or so. It's not been a great time for GEO launches, but it was also down because of an issue you had on an August 2020 launch with the fairing separation that didn't harm the payloads. They were separated and placed into orbit as expected, but it was worrisome enough so that you wanted to fix the payload, the fairing separation issue, before you launched again. So now you've launched again. As so far as you know, was the fairing separation everything you wanted it to be? Nominal, as they say?
Completely nominal. I cannot really discuss about the issue that there was, because I'm not knowledgeable. I know there was a clamp issue, and there was some noise and vibration that shouldn't be there, which didn't affect injection. But it shouldn't be there, and we've been aware of that, and that's why we had to look into that, and we've done that with our partner RAG. And then the last flight with the Ariane 5 for Quantum and Star 1D2 went nominally, so the problem is solved.
Okay, and a last one for you before moving to general questions. This is one of those questions no one likes to ask, but we are in a COVID environment still, a year and a half in. And the news out of some French overseas departments has not been good, as you know. Again, we're speaking here on September 1. French Guiana, where your launch base is, on the northeast coast of South America, has had some issues with COVID spikes. They don't spike at the same time as metropolitan Europe or continental Europe spikes. So it's a different continent with different rhythms of this disease. So far as you know now, is the situation there stable? I mean, is there anything that might upset what your launch plans between now and the end of the year, for example? So far as you can say now, I know
a few things. It's a good question. I think first of all, we do operate from French Guiana, but you will see that actually this year we've been launching a lot from Baikonur and Vostochnny for our customer OneWeb. And that is helping us. So it's always good not to rely only on one spot. We have the chance to have three spots to operate from. Now back to Kourou, we learned a lot from COVID, and the last example what we learned is we learned how to work also with connected smart glass. That's what we did on the launch on Vega, the rideshare last year. And what we did, because some customer could not attend their satellite preparation, the battery loading, We actually connected our team, our engineers, with smart connected glass, connected to a video server, encrypted video server, so we could actually be the hands and the eyes on behalf of our customers for this specific mission. Of course, we are talking here about very small satellite, CubeSat, nanosat, microsat. We're not talking about big geostationary satellite. For big geo, of course, we have strict protocol which aim to protect the population and, of course, our customers and our employees. But when those protocols are respected, there's a safe way now to enter Kourou and not to upset the campaign. So yes, we are ready to learn from the past, if I may say.
All right, so you've got one more commercial launch.
At least, yeah.
Go ahead. Oh, you've got one more commercial launch scheduled.
Yeah, no, so
James Webb, right? And then James Webb toward the end of the year. So that's two.
Yeah, we have a few. Yeah, the next one is a Soyuz launch, but then we have other launches for Vega and for Ariane as well.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
From French Canada.
Understood. We'll leave it there for now. All right. Let me invite all four of you back onto the floor and ask. I want to ask just a simple question to all four of you. So first for you, then for MHI, then SpaceX and Arianespace. The GTO market. I'm sorry to talk about something so old and boring, but maybe it won't be boring in 5 years. I don't know, and I want to know what you guys think about that. This used to be the bread and butter market for commercial space launch. It has suffered the last few years for lots of reasons. We don't need to go into those. Some might be cyclical, some might be structural, some might be dependent on how the LEO broadband constellations do. It's a mix of things, but I want to ask first Sidgwick and then the rest of you, how do you see the GTO commercial market, the export market, in the coming years?
I would rather say to have a comment on this, but in recent years, we know that the various commercial constellations emerge one after another, resulting in a more demand for launch services. Yeah. With the development boom of small satellites around the world, major launch services providers will launch multiple satellites utilizing various launch vehicles from the large to the small ones. And you may know very well, the launcher is economically better than the small ones in the constellation deployment stage. And why the small one is better when we want to add or replace the satellites to the constellation due to its flexibility and rapid response. So after more than 40 years of development, the city has established an experienced team of professionals. And in this regard, under the guidance and support of the CAS Group, we have extended our experience in international business to domestic market by providing effective and reliable one-stop services for both domestic and foreign customers. And since we launched Long March and launch vehicle entered the international market in 1990, CWIC has conducted 52 international commercial launches, delivering a total of 69 satellites, including 11 in-orbit delivery programs of GEO-COMSAT and for remote sensing IDs. In the future, anyway, we are ready to conduct various launches to meet the customer's needs, dedicated or rideshare constellation deployments and our cluster launch, targeting to provide with the low cost and highly reliable launch solution to global users. That's my opinion.
Okay, yeah, that's certainly true. My question was, though, when it's a GEO market, lots of different nations will have GEO satellites. You've launched many of these nations' GEO-orbit satellites. Yeah. So have the other three companies on this panel. If the market for GEO now goes way down for the foreseeable future, that changes everything, because not every country is going to have its own LEO broadband constellation. At least I hope not. Yeah. Right?
Yes, no, we realize that because we have a large variety of launch vehicles. We can launch the satellites in GTO launch sites and also the LU SST missions. So I think we are ready to meet our customers' requirements. So we don't have any problem in it. Okay.
Yes. Right.
Okay.
Okay. MHI. Well, how do you look at the GTO market? Is it MHI's opinion that this is a market that's going to come back gradually? That some of these LEO constellations will not work, or that VHTS or HTS broadband satellites from GEO will find a place in the market and provide a steady business? Just how do you look at it? I'm not sure there's a consensus in the industry about this.
Okay, so of course we are predicting the GTO markets, and it is true that the demands are slowly decreasing, and although there will be less than in the past, but the demand for the GEO missions, we believe it will remain around 10 or maximum 15, and it would be complicated. There are many various missions. Stacks are common, and sometimes the smaller constellations, small satellites on GEO, something like that. Yep. So our preparation study are underway, and by our strong points, flexible accommodation with customers, we are now going to get the chance to have the business in GEO missions. It would be different, but we will remain.
Okay, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of your first H3 launches is from the commercial mobile satellite service provider Inmarsat of London, one of their big Inmarsat 6 satellites. That's one of your first H3s, is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Totally great. Okay.
Yes.
All right, Stephanie, let me move on to you. What does SpaceX think about the future of the GTO market? Do you have an opinion? It's okay if you don't. A lot of people have different opinions.
Sure. No, happy to share thoughts on the GEO market. First off, let's not dismiss our GEO customers. Our GEO customers are great, and that market is still continuing to grow, but I think it's changing a little bit. From a launch side, I'm really agnostic to whether customers want to go to GTO, MEO, LEO. We can optimize Falcon 9 for whatever they need. But I am seeing some changes in the GEO market with interest in different size spacecraft, right? So, the interest in OneSats and Space Inspires and some of the smaller GEO buses that can lead to some interesting configurations of launching multiples. So how that changes the demand for launches to GEO per year, I think we'll see as more and more of those orders come in. But overall, I'm seeing the demand for launch for what I would say dedicated Falcon 9s, steady and growing slightly.
Okay. I heard one launch service provider, when he was asked the other day, are satellites getting bigger, your customer satellites getting bigger or smaller? And he said yes. And that's
exactly.
And we know from a launch you had this year that Falcon can launch a 7 metric ton satellite into GTO. So you can do the heavy stuff, but really, do you expect a lot of 7-ton GEO satellites coming on the market? I mean, I haven't seen too many of those.
I think you'll be surprised to see a few more coming onto the market, but then I think you'll see 7-ton-ish stacks of satellites too, right? Of 2 or more satellites that want to launch at the same time and whose manufacturing aligns. But I'm also seeing interest in smaller GEOs, right? Of smaller GEO buses, and some of those companies are really interesting in what they're able to offer their customers, and so we look forward to being able to offer rideshare to GTO and GEO for them.
I mean, after having taken, you mean multiple satellites on a single stack going to GTO?
Exactly.
Fair enough. All right. Vivian, Arianespace, the GTO market. Obviously, this has been important to Ariane over the last 40 years or so, as it has been to anybody. How do you see it going in the future? Is it stay down where it's been? 2020 was a bad year, but go ahead.
No, I think you have to put things in perspective. So before 2015, we had an average per year of about 19 satellites to launch every year. From 2015 to 2019, we had a sharp decrease where we had an average of 10, but actually sometimes even below that. What you see now since last year we had a C-band auction. There's been quite a few orders, but you could think that was a one-time off. But what we see already in 2021 is, I think, 6 or 7, or I'm talking about only commercial satellite here. I'm not talking about institutional. So we saw this year already 6 or 7, and I know a few more that are coming this year. So this year we will easily reach the 10 satellite mark. We are thinking that the average in the coming years should be around 15. So yes, it's not the good old years before 2015, but it's also not back to the bottom that we had between 2015 and 2019. And I think there's a few reasons for that. First of all, GEO have changed, like Stephanie said. They have renewed themselves. First, a few years back came the HTS, then the VHTS, UHTS, name it. Then came electrical propulsion, and now we have software-defined satellite, which are very flexible with beamforming, with allocation of power, depending on where the surge is. So geostationary satellites have really become more relevant than before, because a lot of people were hesitating to reinvest in a satellite for 15 years when the satellite, once launched, could not be changed. And that has changed now with software-defined satellite, like Stephanie said, OneSat Inspire, Boeing X702. And I see more interest from customers. And one thing that we should not forget is, although I believe, because sometimes the discussion are very polarized now, is either people are full-on mega constellation or full-on GEO, and I tend to be more in between. I think there is space, no pun intended, for both a mega constellation and GEO. And actually, I think the smart players will the one combine both, who have a high offer. And when I look at the market, I have the feeling that's just my impression that the guys like Eutelsat are starting to look at playing with both. I think they have no intention to leave the GEO behind because they're good business, but they're now also investing in OneWeb. I think Viasat has a similar approach. I think Telesat, those guys, they have no intention to leave the GEO customer behind. They just want to complete and to have a better offer combining both.
Yeah,
so I think that there is room for both systems.
Okay. All right, I'm running short on time here. We got about 3 minutes, so I'd like a quick answer from each of you to this last question. It's also a fairly easy one. So starting with Xi and Sidgwick, you mentioned earlier that larger rideshare missions cost less per kilo for a satellite owner than the smaller ones.
Yeah.
That's true. That's certainly true for everybody. And there are some advantages to the smaller vehicles, as you know, as well, because you can launch on a schedule that's yours to control rather than to be part of a pack. You have to wait on the slowest satellite to arrive to launch, that sort of thing. And then there's a whole business now, as you know, in space tugs to take your satellite from a launch vehicle's drop-off point to its final orbit for big ride shares. Smaller launch vehicles don't need that. I guess my question is to you, there are now, by last count, 150-something small launch vehicles being developed around the world. Let's say half of these are serious, and only half of those will maybe go anywhere. That still leaves you with several dozen new small launch vehicles coming onto the market, including, at least last I checked, 3 in China. Do you think these vehicles ultimately will have to fail because the economics of larger vehicles or larger companies with smaller vehicles like CGWIC will be able to own the market? Or do you think the market is big enough to support lots of these smaller vehicles? So that's, and if we could just go down the line, answer that, and then if I could get Iwao of MHI and Stephanie and Vivian to answer the same question.
Okay, we recently noticed that some of the startups for small launch vehicles such as Lab and Virgin Orbit are going public through SPAC. While there are significant, as you said, a significant number of new private launch vehicle companies established in China, they are also targeting the small satellite market and are receiving favorable attention from the venture capital. Probably hope to go IPOs eventually for the sustainable and stable financing sources. 3 of the world's the constellation or small satellite viewers types with the scales from 10 to 1,000 are now being planned or have been already under the rapid deployments at the technology for small satellites evolves. The launch demand for these satellites grows faster, obviously. In my opinion, on one hand, startup firms wish to launch their business as soon as possible to generate revenue and to raise funds for the further developments. On the other hand, they have to finish several test flights and to verify their design and manufacture and to validate that their low-cost solution. In my opinion, it is not an easy way to go. And sometimes, yes, sometimes they have to confront failures and setbacks. However, after they go through all the tough times and survive, if they can develop a mature product by improvements in its reliability and establish the profit model, they will, I think they will find their places in the market. Yes, as for us, and I think, CWIC pays constant attention to the new entrants in the both domestic and international launch services market. At the launch services provider with a large variety of launch vehicles, and we believe that always believe that the most important thing is reliability, which is the foundation of spaceflight. And with reliability will allow it to play an important role of providing a wide range of services for long-march launch vehicles with a total of 386 launches in the present and a success rate over 97%. CWIC is capable of providing highly reliable launch services to our customers. And also, the low cost is another critical feature, of course, especially for commercial ones. In this regard, we are confident, as always, to provide both an international and domestic customers the most cost-effective solutions to meet their needs. And another thing is the in addition, the high cadence of launches of long-march service launch vehicle in recent years offers many rideshare opportunities to access to space, which enables again.
Because they're about to just throw me off stage here, so I got to cut you off because I want to give the other 3 a chance to answer the question. But thank you for a complete response. Iwao, MHI.
Okay. I will answer.
I need a small launch option. Do you need a small launch vehicle in your portfolio?
Yeah. Okay, so generally speaking, I hope the expansion of the space industry is very important. So we will give the collaboration with them, efforts, technologies, and so on. And I think they have their own advantages. So my opinion is we can coexist each other. Thank you.
We can coexist, but you don't want to coexist. You want to eat them. All right, we'll leave it at that. All right, Stephanie, this small launch stuff. One of the quotes from Gwynne Shotwell that I like and I use all the time when she was asked why doesn't SpaceX have a small vehicle, and said, yes, but a market isn't just demand; it's a demand with money. Fair enough. Do you think most of these small vehicles are just bound to disappear because they cannot sustain themselves economically, or how do you look at it?
First off, I do want to say I think this is a really exciting time in the industry, and I am energized to see all these new entrants. I think that's great. I think competition is a good thing. Getting to orbit is hard, so I wish everybody good luck because this is hard. This is challenging stuff. As for addressing the small sat market, I'm pretty confident in our offering, and that we're able to offer flexible launch solutions, whether you have a small satellite, a big satellite, or wherever you want to go. So come talk to us, regardless of the size of your satellite and where you want to go.
Fair enough. All right, we'll leave it at that. Vivian, you've got the small rideshare offerings in both the Ariane 6 to come, 6.2, and the Vega C. You think that companies like yours and SpaceX with established businesses will make it so that most of these new launch vehicles, the smaller ones coming up now, will have to disappear?
Well, let me take an analogy. I think it's like when you compare in aviation, whether or not you prefer to be in a private jet or you prefer to take a commercial plane. I think everybody would like to be in a private jet because you have champagne, comfort alone or with your friends. So that's cool. The problem is that none of us, or at least I cannot, and most of us cannot afford a private jet. And I think that's the same with our industry. A lot of customers would prefer to have a dedicated launch that leaves whenever they are ready, and that would be perfect. The truth is that is willing to pay, or very few people are willing to pay 3 to 4 times the price to have that service. At least from our study, from the institutional customers in Europe, we have very little demand. And the only customer that we've seen that is addressable for commercial company is the US defense. But that's only a certain amount of launch. It can definitely not feed 100 micro launches. So that's where we see. But one thing we have to look at is it's a very dynamic industry, a lot of young people with bright ideas. So we are looking to this market because they find a way to innovate and be more relevant and be more competitive. And in that case, we should really be careful and look at what they're using, how they're using, and maybe inspire ourselves from this dynamic industry, this dynamic niche.
Okay, fair enough.
Niche.
So for small satellite owners, only beer, no champagne with Arianespace. If you want the champagne, go somewhere else. Anyway, Vivian, Stephanie, well, thank you very much for your time. I think we are running a little bit over. I'm sorry, Christopher, but I think it's been an interesting discussion, and thank you all again.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Iwan. Thank you, Gingy.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for that, Peter. As always, excellent moderation. Very much appreciated. Thanks so much, Dingjie. Thank you very much, Igarashi-san. We really appreciated Stephanie and Vivian. Always a pleasure to have you on one of our webinars and to have your support. So thanks again to all of the panelists, and thank you to our viewers for joining us. Please do feel free to let your colleagues know about the APSCC webinar series. We look forward to having you join us for future installments. And of course, as I said before, if you're interested in finding out more, check us out at apscc.or.kr. And if you're interested in other topics in the webinar series, including previous iterations on launch services, feel free to just look around on this website, apsccsat.com. All of the previous webinars are archived here. Look forward to seeing you soon.